Hello, my name is Polly and I'm a honeybee. I live in a beehive not too far from here. Your teacher asked me to come here today to tell you about flowers. I hear that you've been learning all about plants and that you already know a lot about them. I also hear that you know that flowers make seeds and that seeds can grow into new plants. Well, I'm delighted to come and tell you about flowers because flowers are one of my very favorite things in the whole world. The meadow near my beehive is full of all different kinds of flowers. There are red flowers and orange flowers and yellow flowers. Earlier today, I visited a particularly delicious yellow flower. Come along and I'll show it to you. Here is the flower I was telling you about. Do you see this ring of bright yellow parts here around the flower? These are called petals. The petals look like leaves, except that they are brightly colored. The petals are parts of the flower that grab my attention when I am buzzing around. But my favorite thing to do is crawl inside the petals into the center of the flower. What's it like to crawl inside a flower like this? Oops. Oh, whoops. I accidentally skipped a page. I think. Oh, yes, I did. Okay. So these are the petals. Right? This is a flower that she visited. She likes to go inside. What's it like to crawl inside of a flower like this? Imagine for a minute that you're crawling into a narrow tent made of bright yellow cloth. Bright yellow is all around you. Now imagine that you are inside the tent drinking the world's tastiest drink through a straw. And that you are so happy that you wriggle around and get covered with yellow powder that smells great and feels good against your skin. That's what it's like for me when I visit a flower. As far as I'm concerned, the world's tastiest drink is called nectar, which is like a sweet juice that plants make, and the yellow powder that I like to rub up against is called pollen. I find both nectar and pollen inside the flowers, and frankly, I'm not sure which one I like better. I don't just visit one flower, I visit more than 50 flowers in one outing, sometimes as many as 100. I visit these flowers because we bees get our food from flowers. My job is to fly around and find nectar and pollen, which I gather up and take back to my hive. I have a special pouch inside my body that holds nectar, and there are special hairs on my back legs that form a little basket that I brush pollen into. When it's time to go back to my hive, sometimes my load of pollen and nectar weighs half as much as I do. When I get back, I turn the nectar and pollen over to the worker bees in the hive. They mix the pollen with a little bit of nectar and feed it to the baby bees. Then they fan the rest of the nectar with their wings until most of the water is gone. Can you guess what nectar turns into when most of the water is gone? Nectar with most of the water removed is called honey. Here's the honey in my hive. We bees use honey for food. We keep it in a bunch of little cubbies that we call a honeycomb. I visit flowers to get food, and that's reason enough for me. But it turns out that I'm also doing something else besides finding food for myself and the other bees. I'm helping the plants reproduce or make more plants. In order to make a seed that can develop into a new plant, most plants need to mix pollen from their own flowers with pollen from other plants that are like them. For example, a corn plant needs pollen from other corn plant to allow it to make seeds. When pollen from one corn plant lands on another corn plant, something called pollination takes place. Pollination is really important because if it doesn't happen, the plant won't be able to make any seeds. And if there are no seeds, there will be no new plants. Of course, a corn plant can't walk to another corn plant and hand it some pollen. Plants can't walk around like you human beings, and they can't flap their wings and fly like us bees either. But the pollen grains themselves are very small. They can be blown here and there by the wind. When the wind blows, it can blow pollen from one corn plant to another, or from one pretty flower to another. So the wind helps pollinate plants so they can make new plants. But I also help pollinate plants. Can you think how my trips from one plant to another might help pollinate plants? When I visit a flower and roll around inside, I pick up a lot of pollen. When I fly on to the next flower, I carry pollen from other flowers with me, and some of it rubs off onto the next flower I visit. That's why I am an excellent pollinator of plants, and that is why they call me Polly the Pollinator. I don't like to brag, but we bees are the most important pollinators in the world. Oh, sure, the wind helps pollinate and some other insects too. Butterflies, moths, beetles, wasps. hummingbirds. But believe it or not, bees are the best pollinators. So pollinator, the bee goes in, gets the pollen, and carries it to another plant. It helps the plant stay alive and then be able to reproduce or make other plants. So they're very important for us in our world. Isn't that cool that bees do a job for us to help our planet and our plants and our earth look very beautiful and grow?